Car mechanic scams. This woman, he regrets it when she does this the next day. Linda Miller drove slowly down Main Street, the fall sun reflecting off the hood of her silver sedan. The engine light had come on that morning, glowing like a warning she didn't want to face. The car was her husband Frank's pride and joy before he passed, and she'd kept it in perfect condition. But now, as she turned into a small auto shop with a faded sign that read Rexford Auto Repair, she felt uneasy. The parking lot was nearly empty, and the air smelled faintly of oil and burnt rubber. Inside, the clang of tools and the hum of a compressor filled the space. A young mechanic with slicked-back hair and a smirk greeted her from behind the counter. His name tag read Mike. He looked her up and down like he'd already made up his mind about her. Linda explained the issue, her voice polite but unsure. Mike nodded quickly, taking her keys before she could finish. He told her it would only take a few minutes to check it out, his tone friendly but dismissive, the way a salesman talks when he's already decided on the sale. She sat in the small waiting area, the smell of stale coffee hanging in the air. From the open bay door, she could see Mike and another mechanic leaning over her car, laughing about something. Their voices carried faintly, just enough for her to catch the words, "Another easy one." Her stomach tightened. She pretended to read an old magazine, though her eyes never moved across the page. After a while, Mike came back holding a clipboard. He told her it was bad news. The catalytic converter was failing, and it needed to be replaced immediately. $1,200. Parts and labor. He said it like a doctor giving a diagnosis, full of authority and practiced sympathy. Linda hesitated, but his tone left little room for questions. She agreed. An hour later, Mike handed back her keys with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The car sounded exactly the same when she turned it on. As she pulled out of the lot, she caught sight of a business card tucked beside the receipt on the passenger seat. Rexford Auto Group. The name tugged at her memory, but she couldn't quite place it. She drove home in silence, a faint tremor of unease settling in her chest. That evening, Linda sat alone at her kitchen table, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. The bill from the repair shop lay in front of her, its numbers sharp and unfriendly under the glow of the overhead light. She traced a finger down the page, reading each charge slowly. The total, $1,200, still didn't feel right. Her tea had gone cold, but she didn't notice. She reached for her laptop and typed in the part number listed on the invoice. A few clicks later, a half-dozen websites showed the same catalytic converter for half the price. Her heart sank. The words labor surcharge and diagnostic fee glared up at her like accusations. Linda leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. She remembered Frank's voice, deep and steady, explaining car repairs at the kitchen counter years ago. He always said the same thing: honest work leaves no question marks. She looked at the bill again, and there were nothing but question marks. On the counter, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her son, Jason. He'd found out what the parts should cost and sent her a screenshot. She stared at the price difference until her jaw tightened. He wrote, "Mom, they took advantage of you." The words felt heavy, almost personal. Linda stood and walked to the window. The neighborhood was quiet, the streetlights glowing on wet pavement. Her reflection stared back at her, tired but alert. She went back to the table, opened a drawer, and pulled out the small leather folder where she kept her receipts. She slid the invoice inside, neat and deliberate, next to the car's maintenance records. Before going to bed, she passed the hall table where a photo of Frank rested in its frame. His eyes still had that patient look, as if he were about to tell her one of his corny jokes. She touched the glass lightly. The memory steadied her. When she turned out the lights, the house felt different, quieter, but charged with something new. The old unease in her chest had shifted, replaced by something firmer, something that felt a lot like resolve. The next morning, Linda parked her car in front of Rexford Auto once again. The air was cool, and the garage doors were already open, the noise of tools and engines spilling out into the parking lot. She stepped out of her car, her movements calm and steady. Inside, the same greasy smell greeted her, mixed with the faint scent of burnt oil. Mike noticed her immediately. He was wiping his hands on a rag, half smiling, half annoyed. His voice carried over the sound of an air compressor. "Back already? Something wrong?" His tone was light, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Linda walked up to the counter and laid the folded invoice down. Her voice was quiet, but firm. She asked him to double-check the part he replaced the day before. Mike blinked, pretending not to understand. Then he gave a short laugh, the kind that made her skin crawl. "Of course it was replaced," he said. He told her everything was done properly, just like the invoice said. She didn't argue. Instead, she asked if she could see it herself. For a brief second, Mike's expression slipped, then hardened again. He muttered something about shop policy and motioned toward the back of the garage. The manager, Bill Thompson, appeared from his office, a tall man with a slick haircut and a tired look. He glanced between them, then asked what the problem was. Mike answered for her, calling it a misunderstanding. Bill looked at Linda, his patience thin. He told her if she wasn't satisfied, she could always take her business elsewhere. His words were polite on the surface, but sharp underneath. Linda nodded slowly, gathering the paper back into her purse. She looked at them both for a long moment, the kind of silence that fills a room heavier than any words. Then she said softly that she hoped her father would see how this place was being run. Mike snorted, rolling his eyes. "Your father? What's he gonna do? Leave a bad review?" Bill gave a nervous chuckle, but his hands shifted uneasily on the counter. Linda said nothing more. She turned and walked out, her steps measured and sure. The sound of her car door closing echoed across the lot long after she was gone. A black SUV pulled into the parking lot just as Linda reached her car. The garage workers looked up from their bays, wiping their hands on rags as the vehicle came to a stop. The doors opened, and a tall man in a gray suit stepped out, his polished shoes catching the morning light. Mike straightened up, confused. The man's lapel pin gleamed with the words Rexford Auto Group. Linda turned toward him with an easy smile. The man smiled back, warm and familiar. "Sorry I'm late, honey," he said as he approached. The word hung in the air like a dropped wrench. Every sound in the garage seemed to stop at once. Bill's face went pale. Mike blinked, his mouth slightly open. The suited man looked around, his expression shifting from friendly to focused. His tone carried the weight of quiet authority. "I'm Charles Miller," he said evenly, "CEO of Rexford Auto Group. I'm here to review how our new branch is operating." He turned to Linda and spoke gently, asking if this was the shop that serviced her car yesterday. She nodded once, keeping her eyes on Mike. Charles looked back at him. "Then maybe you can explain," he said, "why my daughter was charged double for a repair that doesn't appear to have been done." The color drained from Mike's face. He stammered, saying it must have been a mistake, that maybe the part supplier had mixed things up. Bill jumped in quickly, agreeing, calling it an unfortunate misunderstanding. Charles didn't raise his voice. He simply asked to see the records, his calmness more intimidating than anger could ever be. A long silence followed. The workers nearby pretended to stay busy, though their glances gave away everything. Bill disappeared into his office, rummaging through papers that suddenly didn't look so neat. Mike stood frozen, eyes darting toward the exit. Charles finally looked at Linda. She met his gaze, steady and calm. When he asked what she wanted done, she didn't gloat or smirk. She only said, "Let's give them a chance to make things right." Her words softened the room, but they didn't erase the shame on the men's faces. The balance had shifted completely, and everyone knew the game had changed. By the end of that week, the Rexford Auto Shop didn't look the same. The office door that once bore Bill Thompson's name now carried a small sign that read, "Manager's Office, Vacant." Charles Miller had spent the past few days reviewing files, talking with customers, and listening to every complaint that came his way. The workers moved quietly now, careful but not fearful. Something in the air had changed. Linda walked through the garage beside her father, watching the employees clean, organize, and fix what had been left undone. Her car sat in one of the bays, this time with real work being done on it. The honest kind. Mike was the one under the hood, sleeves rolled up, face focused. When he noticed her, he straightened quickly, wiping his hands on his coveralls. He hesitated before stepping forward. His voice came out rough but honest. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I treated you like you didn't matter. I saw you as an easy job." That was wrong. His eyes didn't leave hers. For a long moment, Linda said nothing. Then she nodded slightly. "We all have days we wish we could redo," she said. "The trick is to learn from them." Her tone was even, but her words carried the kind of weight that only comes from experience. She turned to leave, and Mike quietly went back to work, his movements slower now, more deliberate. Outside, Charles thanked his daughter for her patience. He said most people would have come storming in with anger. Linda smiled faintly, looking up at the new sign above the building. Rexford Auto. Honest work, honest prices. The words looked right this time. A few weeks later, Linda drove past the shop again. The lot was busy, cars lined up, customers chatting easily with the staff. Through the open door, she caught a glimpse of Mike helping an older man carry boxes of parts. He looked different, humble, lighter somehow. At home, Linda set her keys on the table and glanced at the framed photo of Frank. His face, calm and kind, seemed to smile back at her. She whispered softly, "You were right, Frank. A good mechanic fixes cars. A great one fixes himself." The house felt warm again, steady and full of peace.